hear the good news or the bad news first?
I prefer hearing the good news first because it makes the bad news easier to hear.
The good news is you don't have a cold.
Oh, that's great. But what's the bad news?
The bad news is you are going to die. 3, 2, 1.
Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's lesson. Today we're going to talk about preferences. And we'll start by looking at comparatives and superlatives. Now, a comparative is when you have two things and you're trying to compare them. And a superlative just is the same as comparative, just many things. So if we look at this carrot, we can say that the carrot is long. But if we want to compare the carrot with the corn, we would say that the corn is longer. Okay, so ER is comparative. And at the bottom, we have a zucchini. The zucchini, if you compare it with those three, the zucchini is the longest. Okay, so ER is with two things, comparative. EST is with 3, 4, or many things. However, not everything is perfect. Some comparatives are not ER words, but you know many of these. Here we have good, better, best, bad, worse, worst, many, more, most, few, fewer, fewest, and there's a bunch of other ones like far, farther, farthest, delicious, more delicious, most delicious. So there's a lot of comparatives that use the word more. And if you ever don't know, using more might be the safe bet. Here we have some adverb comparatives. So if we said, you could say quicker, but if you're saying he's moving quickly, and you want to compare it with another person, you can say he's moving more quickly or more slowly, more carefully, like that. Irregular comparatives lead into irregular superlatives, and these ones have the same similar things. So instead of more, using most. So difficulter, it's not really a word. More difficult, so the superlative would be most difficult. Handsome, most handsome, not handsomest. Beautiful, beautifulest, most beautiful. And also popular is most popular. Now to use these in a sentence, comparative, you might have seen the sentence, is than. So the cheetah is faster than the wolf. But you don't always have to add that second part. Sometimes you can just say the cheetah is faster. If we already know what we're comparing to, then the cheetah is faster is good enough. For superlatives, we say is the est. So chocolate is the best. So we have the in there. Russia is the biggest country. Bet. Now we're moving into preferences. And a preference is what do you like most? So you can be comparing two things or many things, and you have to decide which one do you like a little bit more. Maybe you like all of the things. I like all flavors of ice cream, but I like chocolate a little bit more, so chocolate is my preference, but I like all the others. It's the same thing if all of the options are bad. You can still have one that's not as bad. So it's something that you like a little bit more. So some questions you might answer, which do you like best? So here you can answer with your own preference. And you can answer with I prefer because. Sometimes they'll give you a question like, which do you prefer? And that's probably between two people or two things, or maybe a bunch of things. Okay, so we're going to look at a video in the airport. Now the airport, a lot of times they'll give you the choice between an aisle seat or a window seat. This is the aisle. So the aisle is in the middle. So these are the aisle seats. The windows over here, these are the window seats. So the aisle seat, window seat, and middle seat. Nobody wants middle seat.
Hello, I reserved a ticket to Singapore.
Can I get your passport, please?
Sure.
Thank you. Would you like a window or an aisle seat?
I prefer an aisle seat. I think the aisle seat is better because I can go to the washroom faster.
In that video, Jessamine went to the airport to get her ticket. Jillian asked, would you like a window or an aisle seat? And remember, aisle seat is in the middle. Jessamine responded with, I prefer the aisle seat because I can go to the washroom faster. So she had the option between two things. She likes aisle a little bit more because it's faster to go to the washroom. If you're by the window, you have to climb over people to get to the washroom. So for each of these, I also asked some of the Coeli teachers, what is their preference? Let's see.
I prefer a window seat. I like looking out the window.
I prefer an aisle seat.
I prefer a window seat because I want to see everything.
On a bus, I prefer to have a window seat, but on airplanes, I prefer the aisle seat.
I definitely prefer an aisle seat.
Definitely an aisle seat because I am a little tall, so more leg room.
Now let's go to the restaurant where David is trying to figure out which food does he like.
What do you want to eat?
I prefer the salad because it's the healthiest.
Ooh, really?
Yeah.
I think steak is better because it's more delicious.
Oh, okay. I'll have the steak.
Okay. Waiter.
At the restaurant, Jessamine and David were trying to decide which food to eat. They were looking at the menu, and the menu has many different things on it. So Jessamine asked, what do you want to eat? David looked at the menu and he likes salad just a little bit more. So it's his preference. Maybe he likes all the things on the menu, I don't know. But this one he likes a little bit more. So he says, I prefer salad because it is the healthiest. There's many different things on the menu. So when you compare many things, we use superlative, EST. So to use a superlative, we need the EST, the healthiest. I prefer salad because it is the healthiest. But Jessamine disagrees. She says, I think the steak is better because it's more delicious. Delicious is one of those irregular comparatives. So we can't say deliciouser, really hard to say. We have to say more delicious. Okay, next, let's go to the hotel.
Hello, welcome to Grandview Hotel. How can I help you?
I'd like to get a room, please.
Sure. What kind of room would you like?
What do you have?
The single room is the cheapest. The double room is the best value, and the suite is the most expensive.
I prefer the single room because it is the cheapest.
Are you sure? I think the suite is the best because it comes with a hot tub.
The single room, please.
So John went to the hotel and he had to decide which room did he want. Sunny asked, "What kind of room would you like?" Remember, there was single, double, and suite. The single was the cheapest. The double was the best value, so you get more for your money. And the suite is the most expensive. So John said, "I prefer," three options, so which one he likes the best. "I prefer the single room because it's the cheapest." So maybe he doesn't have too much money, but I can understand that.
If it's possible, I prefer suite because I wanted to stay there for one night. Maybe, yeah, but usually maybe single or double room.
I prefer a suite because then there's a couch and a kitchen and lots of room to dance in the hotel room.
I would definitely prefer a suite.
Definitely, I would prefer a suite because it's more fancy and spacious.
I prefer a single room, please.
I think I would prefer a suite room compared to like a double room. Yeah, suite room for sure.
I would prefer a suite because that is the most luxurious option.
Okay, and let's go to the hospital to see our dialogue.
Well, do you want to hear the good news or the bad news first?
I prefer hearing the good news first because it makes the bad news easier to hear.
The good news is you don't have a cold.
Oh, that's great. But what's the bad news?
The bad news is you are going to die. 3, 2, 1.
At the hospital, the doctor might give you a choice between good news or bad news first. Sometimes everything's balanced. There's good and bad news. So Jella asked, "Do you want to hear the good news or the bad news first?" And David said, "I prefer hearing the good news first because it makes the bad news easier to hear." Bad news, especially at the doctor, is usually really bad news. So he wants to hear the good news first because then the bad news will not feel so bad.
Let's start with the good news. I prefer good news.
I prefer all good news all the time.
I prefer good news first because it will make me cheer up. Then if I hear the bad news, after that maybe I can overcome very well.
Bad news first because the good news is way better after, of course.
I prefer the bad news first because that will probably affect me the most.
I prefer bad news first because I want to remember the good news for longer.
I got bad news once. But I prefer to get it first. That way I have something happy to look forward to after I get the bad news.
Well, thank you for joining me today as we took a look at preference. I wonder, what are your preferences? Anyways, we'll talk to you later. Bye.
I prefer vanilla ice cream.
I prefer Cherry's Jubilee ice cream.
I prefer chocolate ice cream because it has the most delicious flavor.
My preferred flavor of ice cream is melon ice cream. I love the fruity flavor.
I prefer vanilla.
Ooh. I prefer chocolate and peanut butter.
I prefer peppermint or chocolate mint ice cream.
I prefer green because it's the color of leaves and nature, and I really like going outside to hike.
I prefer red because it's the strongest and brightest color.
I prefer 3 colors. First is purple, the second is aqua, and the third is gold.
I prefer pink because I really like a peachy. As you know, in Cacao, one of the characters.
I prefer black.
My favorite color is green because it is the national color of South Africa.
I prefer this color.